I am obsessed with running. I joined the cross-country team when I was in high school, when I was 13 years old. I walked on. I was never an athlete. I never thought of myself as an athlete. And this was a really tough sport for me at first because I wasn't in shape. I was trying to get in shape, and it sucked. It was very painful for the first couple weeks, I'd say. I saw a movie about this guy. This guy's name is Steve Prefontaine. He's one of the greatest American distance runners to live. And the movie's called Without Limits. It's not that great of a movie, but the story just blew my mind. And so I started running because I wanted to be this guy. This guy was my hero. I saw how hard he worked. I saw where it got him, and it really just inspired me and fired me up. So over the next few years, I was running on the cross-country team at my high school, and I finally actually made it onto the varsity squad, which was a big deal for me. We finally made it to the state championships, and it was a muddy and rainy day that day. But it was really great to be on that team and finally start to excel in the sport. Now, what's funny about this whole thing is that, as I mentioned earlier, I never really thought of myself as much of an athlete. So this is an event that I ran. It's called the steeplechase. It's a 3,000-meter race, but there's also equestrian hurdles, horse hurdles that you need to jump over. And this is an example of what happens when I'm put in a sport where there's any amount of coordination required. I'm going to fail miserably. And so the more I kind of started running and the more I got into it, the more I realized that there were so many other things that this sport was teaching me beyond just the competitive and the fitness aspect. But this was really a driving force in my life that got me through high school, it got me into college, it got me my first job out of college. It really taught me that strong work ethic, and I still really believe in that today. So by the time I got to college, I ran because I didn't really know what else to do. I'd been doing it for so long. It was such a part of my life that just like I did in high school, I walked onto the cross-country team at Carnegie Mellon. And there was a new set of challenges because the team kind of camaraderie wasn't the same. There was also much different types of races. So instead of 5Ks, now it was 8Ks. It was 10Ks. This was probably one of my best races when I was in college. And it looks like a really intense photo. It looks like I'm winning. But in fact, it's the race of my life, and I'm getting lapped. So it's always a sport for me where, there's always room for improvement. And ever since I've been 13, there's just always new things that I can learn and take on. When I graduated college, I was having serious commitment issues with my running. So I really wanted to run a marathon. I entered my first marathon, the Seattle Rock and Roll Marathon. And not only was I able to run my first marathon, but I was also able to raise money for a good cause. So the next photo, I'll wait for your jaws to drop. I put this photo up on the internet, and I raised about $3,000 just over Facebook and Twitter for leukemia and lymphoma. So now not only was I running for my own kind of personal reasons, but I was also running because I wanted to raise money for a good cause. What was great about this first race is I raised the money, I ran my first marathon. I also qualified for the Boston Marathon. And when I qualified for the Boston Marathon, that was awesome because now I could start thinking about running the big 5 marathons in the world: Boston, New York, Chicago, London, and Berlin. So this was the first of those 5 that I ran. I ran 3 hours flat. I was happy with the time. And then I went on to start run the others. The other thing that actually I really like about running that I started doing since I started running marathons is there's some fantastic technology for running. So my favorite gadget in the world as a technologist is my GPS watch because I get meticulous data that I can just wallow over for all my training runs. And there's nothing more that I love than geeking out on that type of data. So another interesting experience that I had with running was I made some friends when I was in Seattle, and they said, do you want to run a 185-mile, 24-plus hour relay race from Blaine to Whidbey Island in Washington? So we got a team of 12 people together, and what was really awesome about it was, another new challenge, meeting new people, and in addition to the cumulative distance, you have to run at very strange hours. So that adds a lot of drama into it. So for this leg, I had to run at about 1 o'clock in the morning. I have to have headlamps. I have to have reflectors. I don't even know where I am. And then finish this, get back on the bus, sleep for 30 minutes, eat some power bars, sleep for another 30 minutes, get back up at 6 a.m., run another leg. Lots of drama that you're adding, but it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed this race. But I was exhausted by the end of it, as you can see. Now, once I got to India, I moved to India, to Hyderabad about a year ago, and running's been something that I continue to do while I'm here, but at the same time, I've also been doing quite a bit of yoga. And I started doing yoga for very similar reasons to why I started running, for very fitness-oriented reasons. And I found through that yoga and the meditative aspect of it really has made me realize how meditative my running is. So running to me has become this thing where it's the only time of the day where I'm just completely unplugged. It's also been a great opportunity for me to travel around India and to meet new people. So this is a photo from the Oroville half marathon that I ran with the Hyderabad runners. The funny story from this race, it's not the last time I've done this. I was out in front. I ran off the course. I ran 5 kilometers off the course. I took 10 people with me, and I pissed off a lot of people in the process. And then a few weeks later, when I was running a 10K in Bangalore, I actually passed a guy at the 9th kilometer, and he was still pissed off at me because it was one of the guys that I took along with me a few weeks earlier in Oroville. So after this, my second of the world majors I ran this year in April, the London Marathon. This was a good race. I ran an 8-minute PR, I ran 2 hours and 52 minutes. I was happy with the time. I was an absolute train wreck when I crossed the finish line. I projectile vomited. It was a mess. But I couldn't have been more satisfied with the race. The other funny thing, though, stepping back to India for a second, is that the competitive nature of the sport, it's growing, but it's not quite here yet. And so when I ran the Hyderabad Marathon a few weeks ago, I was on TV. I was standing on a podium. I was shaking the governor's hand. I had never stood on a podium in my life before. And I don't think I've ever been on TV after a race before. I also ran off the course and didn't finish the proper way, but I had to finish a second time to, anyway. I just came back from Germany about 6 weeks ago. I ran 2 hours and 48 minutes in the Berlin Marathon. I was very happy with this. Now it's New York and Chicago that are left. And I hope you found this interesting. I hope you understand a bit more about why I run.